member of that advisory committee. And by video conference, we can see him, but I understand he can't see us. But I know it's Michael Mendelson, who I've known for a long time. Welcome, Michael's here on behalf of the Maytree Foundation, which previously his work was done under the name of the Caledon Institute, and he continues as a fellow with Maytree. So thank you to all three of you for being here. I have to emphasize, because of the shortness of the time frame for this panel, I need you to keep your presentations to a maximum of 7 minutes. So with that, I'll ask Michael Mendelson. We'll go to the video first.
Okay, let me know if there's any problem with hearing me. Actually, when you were speaking, Senator Eglinton was cutting in and out a little bit, but hopefully you can hear me well. I'm going to be quick. I had the clerk circulated a paper that I wrote in 2015 on the disability tax credit. I did a printout, and I believe it was translated as well, and you've all had it. So my intention today is to very quickly review the paper, speak to that, just to this paper, and hopefully not take too long to do it, because I am here to make one very simple point, but a point that I think would have a very substantial impact on persons with disabilities in Canada, and particularly the poorest people with disabilities in Canada. And that is, we have a disability tax credit, which is not a refundable tax credit. And that means that people who do not have sufficient income tax, or any income tax often payable, get no benefit from the tax credit. And as you probably can appreciate, the people who have pay little or no income tax are those who are the poorest, and therefore the disability tax credit ends up going to about 1/3, at my very rough estimation, of persons who would be otherwise eligible, but about 2/3 are not. While they would be eligible on the disability, on the basis of their disability, they are not eligible for any benefit because they're not paying income tax. So those 2/3 are the 2/3 of the persons with disabilities who are the poorest of all. So it's a kind of a perverse way to organize a program. And we've, in fact, in Canada, I'm pleased to say, we've been moving overtime to make more of our tax-delivered benefits, our tax credits, what we call refundable, so that they go to everyone, regardless of whether they have enough income tax payable to pay or not. My point is that the disability tax credit should be made refundable. And that's the very simple point. But of course, as with everything else in the tax system, there's some complexity to it, and I'm going to just, as briefly as I can, discuss some of that complexity. So the disability tax credit in the tax system is expressed as a, quote, an amount, but the amount is kind of deceptive, because the actual benefit is 15% of the amount. So in the paper I wrote in 2015, the 2014 amount was $7,766, but it was actually worth only 15% of that in terms of the actual reduction in income tax which was available, and that was $1,165. So we're talking about roughly $1,200, and in 2017, the amount is a little bit more. It's indexed by inflation, and because inflation was low, there's not that much difference. It's a little over $8,000 in 2017 tax year, and it is worth about $1,217. So the numbers that are in my paper of 2015 are roughly correct. So we're talking about a $1,200 benefit that isn't going to the poorest among those with disabilities, and could be going to the poorest among those with disabilities if it were made refundable. The cost, with the data I have available, I can only roughly estimate, but the cost, depending on how it's done, and there are different ways that the federal government could do this, but I'd say the ballpark cost is around $1 billion, give or take $100 million. But of course, the revenue agency could do a lot better job, or finance, of providing you with a good estimate if you ask them to. So that is possible. The amount of money that it would cost is substantial, but it's not outlandish. We're not talking about a $30 billion change. Now, one of the complexities is that the provinces also add on to the disability tax credit, and the amount that the provinces add on is extremely variable. And they call it an amount as well in the provincial tax system, and it works the same way as with the lowest rate in the lowest tax bracket. So it's extremely variable among the provinces, and how the provinces would treat a change in the federal system to a refundable tax credit would be an important factor. And I'm not going to go into all the details of how the provinces could treat the change to a refundable tax credit. The main point is that there'd have to be discussion with the provinces and coordination with them in the change, and they'd have to make some important decisions. In the extreme, if the provinces were entirely uncooperative and say just canceled their programs, the result would be that those with disabilities who are entitled to the disability tax credit currently and pay income tax would have a somewhat of a reduction, depending which province they're in, of the total benefit. But the 2/3 of persons with disabilities who are poorest would still have a substantial increase in their income of about $1,200, about $100 a month. So there would still be a very substantial redistributive benefit. But I don't think that the provinces would be uncooperative. There'd be a way to work with the provinces so that they could work out a coordination with the federal government, and that it would, I think, wouldn't be a new precedent. The federal government and the provinces have certainly worked together in coordinating tax changes of this kind before. So that's the essence of my presentation. It's very simple. That is that there's an opportunity for the federal government to make a change in the tax system, which would be among the best targeted possible changes that could be made. It would result in a substantial benefit going to the poorest among those with disabilities. There's already a system in place. It might not be perfect, but there is a system in place for administering both for administering the disability tax credit and for delivering the benefit. That would have to be changed and adjusted a little bit, and of course the resources that go into it would have to be increased somewhat because there'd be 2/3 more people eligible. But these are pretty efficient credits to administer, so we would be talking about I think a minimal amount of resources to make the administrative change. So in conclusion, I don't know if I've used my full 7 minutes. It's hard to tell on
Go ahead.
on the video conference. But in conclusion, my pitch is I'd like to see your committee recommend that the disability tax credit be made refundable for a well-targeted improvement in income to the persons with disabilities in Canada. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Caledon and Maytree for all of the work you've done on this and other issues over the years. Next, the Canadian Psychological Association, Dr. Cohen. Dr. Cohen, by the way, is the co-chair of the Disability Advisory Committee. Dr. Cohen.
Yes, indeed. I just want to clarify, though, I'm here today on behalf of the Canadian Psychological Association. I'm a psychologist and the CEO of the CPA, which is a national association for the science, practice, and education of psychology in Canada. Psychologists